counter. Should just take a few minutes before the second witness comes in,
Well, y'all didn't do that ahead of time, Miss Birdie.
because it'll block the jury if I have that. It's set up, but it's, if I pull it in, it's gonna
You
block.
sufficiently answered the question.
Okay.
Okay. Anything from the defense?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. Let's return to jury.
All rise, jury entering.
You may be seated. State recognize the presence of the jury,
Yes, Your Honor.
and does the defense.
Yes, sir.
And members of the jury, did you follow all of my previous instructions? State may call in next witness.
State calls James Beverly.
James Beverly?
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you should give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sir, could you please tell us your full name and spell your last name?
My name is James Beverly, and my last name is spelled B-E-V-E-R-L-Y.
And Mr. Beverly, are you currently employed with Reynolds, Smith and Hills Engineering?
I am not.
And were you previously employed with Reynolds, Smith and Hills Engineering?
I was.
Have you now moved to a different engineering firm?
I have.
When did you make that move from RS&H to where you currently are?
March of this year.
How long did you work for RS&H prior to your move?
Total about 21 years.
Okay, now Mr. Beverly, I'm going to ask you to pull that microphone towards you and try to speak up, okay? You're kind of soft-spoken.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, you said 21 years?
21 years.
Okay. What was your job title at RS&H?
Project manager.
And how long did you hold that job title?
Approximately 8 years.
And was that the last 8 years of your employment?
That is correct.
Did you manage projects of a certain type for RS&H?
Mostly trails and facilities projects.
When you were supervising, or you've said a manager, did you actually supervise certain employees while you were there?
Yes.
At any one time, how many employees would you supervise?
At the most, there was 2.
Now, I'd like to take you back to the summer, or second half of 2006 and the first half of 2007. Were you employed with RS&H at that time?
Yes.
And were you employed specifically in a supervisory capacity that we just discussed?
Yes.
And did you have, or at some point, did an employee named Jason Rodriguez come into your, or under your supervision at that point?
Yes.
And did you work with Mr. Rodriguez through when he came to your supervision all the way through his termination?
Yes.
Okay, we'll get back to that portion of your testimony in a moment. Were you working with RS&H and at the offices at Legion Place on Friday, November 6, 2009 at approximately 11:30 a.m.?
Yes.
And at that time, what were you doing and where were you?
I was at my desk working.
And where was your desk within RS&H offices?
It was on the inside row of offices, about 4 offices down.
If I were to show you a floor plan of RS&H from 2009, could you show us where you were that day?
Yes.
You may.
Mr. Beverly, take a look at State's Exhibit 10, please. Orient yourself and tell me when you're ready.
Okay, this is the main entrance,
Yes, sir?
and I was sitting here at my desk.
Okay. How long have you been at that desk? In that office?
In that office, I was there approximately,
Prior to this day, November 6th.
about a year maybe?
Okay. When you worked with Jason Rodriguez, was your office elsewhere within the office?
Yes, it was.
If I showed you the diagram again, could you show us where it used to be?
Yes, I can.
Again, referring to State's Exhibit 10, can you show us where your office was when you worked with Jason Rodriguez?
Yes, it was right here.
Okay, you're pointing to the one,
That is labeled Amy Bent?
was Amy Bent in that cubicle in November of 2009?
No.
Not present, but was that her cubicle, or was she worked out on normal days?
Yes.
Okay. So, to make sure I understand your testimony, when you worked with Jason Rodriguez, you occupied a cubicle on the outside wall. Is that right?
That is correct.
And after he left, and on November 6th of 2009, you were in one of the interior offices on the inside row.
Correct.
Okay. So it's around 11:30 on November 6th, and you are sitting at your desk working. Did something get your attention?
Yes.
What was it that got your attention?
I've heard 4 loud pops.
Did you recognize what the pops were at first?
No.
Can you describe the sequence? In other words, were they spaced out, continuous, or how did it sound?
They were kind of in sequence, but in random sequence.
How do you mean?
It wasn't pop, 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 but it was a pop, pop, pop. It was
Okay.
kind of sporadic.
At varying intervals.
Correct.
All right. What did you do in response to that noise?
At first, thought maybe that it was Friday afternoon. Somebody had brought in some balloons or some party favors, and it was Friday afternoon and during about lunchtime. So I wasn't really sure what it was at first.
So, based on your uncertainty, what did you do?
I remained at my desk.
How long did you remain at your desk, approximately?
After I heard the first pop, I remained at my desk probably for another 10 seconds. What alerted me to get up from my desk was Ed Sorvino.
Okay. Who was Ed Servino?
He was a structural engineer in my office.
And where was he?
He had fallen down in front of my office.
And when you say fallen down, actually hit the ground.
Correct.
And was he moving when he hit the ground, or do you
He
know?
was running
Which direction was he running?
away from the front desk.
So would that have been from your right to your left?
If I was at my desk, it would have been from my right to left.
Okay. Were you able to see Ed Severino's face?
Yes.
And can you describe the expression you saw on Mr. Severino's face?
Yeah, he was terrified.
And what did you do in response to seeing Mr. Severino?
I immediately got up from my desk and walked towards the opening where my office door was.
Okay. Then what?
And at that time, I saw Jason Rodriguez with a gun in his hand, walking to where I used to be.
Okay. Now, when you say you saw Jason Rodriguez, did you have a clear line of sight from where you were to where he was?
Yes,
Now, it's my understanding that there are cubicles in between the outer row and where you were standing. Is that right?
that is correct.
And at this point, you were standing. Is that correct?
That is correct.
How were you able to have clear line of sight with the cubicles?
There's a gap that's in front of my office door that gets you through to the other outer corridor from the cubicles.
You may.
Mr. Applegate, can you see that gap between your office and the other?
This was the gap, and Jason was standing here, walking this way, trying to look in this cubicle when I was standing at my door.
Okay, so. Could you see him head to toe?
Yes,
Do you recall what he was wearing?
not offhand, no.
All right. You said you saw a firearm.
Correct.
Where was the firearm?
It was in his right hand.
And what, can you describe the firearm, or do you remember it at all?
It looked like a 9mm handgun.
And had you seen a 9mm or something similar before?
Yes, in movies or that sort of thing.
Okay, you're basing it on television.
Correct.
Okay. And you said he was looking in Amy Bent's cubicle,
Correct.
and that used to be your cubicle.
Correct.
When you say he was looking, can you describe what it was that made you think he was looking in the cubicle?
He was very determined, and he didn't see me at all at that point, and he was determined and looking up over because there are plants that are on top of the file cabinets.
And he was looking over top of the cubicle wall.
Yes. Trying.
Did you make any other observations as you looked out your office and through the gap that we haven't discussed at that point?
No.
Having seen what you just described, what did you do?
I immediately ran towards the front door. Wasn't sure if he saw me or not. So I crouched down below the top of the cubicle walls and I ran for my life.
And the front door, you're referring to reception, is that right?
That's correct.
Did you see anything as you ran and exited towards reception?
No.
Is that a yes or no, sir?
No, no, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. What did you do when you got to the front door?
I immediately opened it and went straight out
In which direction? Towards what?
towards the elevators and the back stairs.
Okay. Did you observe anyone else on your way to the staircase?
Yes, as I exited the front door, Keith Brockman was running towards me from the back door on that corridor that's right next to the front entrance.
And Keith Brockman was a coworker.
Correct.
Did you and Mr. Brockman go the same place? Or head in the same direction?
Yes, we both immediately ran past the elevators and down the stairs.
Did you go to the elevator garage, or, excuse me, did you go to the parking garage, or did you go all the way to the ground floor?
All the way to the ground floor at the front entrance of the building.
So in the main lobby.
Correct.
When you got downstairs, what did you see?
No one.
Were
It
you
was-
looking for someone in particular?
We were looking for maybe the security guard or someone on duty that could alert 911.
And you found no one.
No.
So what did you end up doing from that point?
From there, we proceeded to go out the front door and across the street to the Sheridan Hotel that was across the street.
And did you meet with law enforcement when you got to the Sheridan?
I did
That's-
not.
You did not?
No.
When did you meet with law enforcement?
It was, I'm not sure exactly the amount of time passed. It was probably about maybe half an hour.
Okay, so you didn't immediately meet with them, but at some point, half an hour later.
I believe they met with Keith because Keith is the one who called 911.
Okay. Did he call on the way over, or when you got to the Sheridan?
No, he was calling on the way over.
And when you met with them, did you identify the shooter to them?
Yes,
Now, you said you saw Jason Rodriguez in the office with a firearm, correct?
that's correct.
Do you see the person that you know and you saw that day in the courtroom today?
I do.
Could you please point to him and describe something he's wearing?
He's wearing the white shirt or the gray shirt.
Your Honor, may the record reflect the witness has identified the defendant.
The record will so indicate.
Now, Mr. Beverly, I'd like to back up in time now and talk about the time that you worked with Jason Rodriguez. When he first started working with RS&H, was he under your supervision?
No,
Is it true that he eventually was transferred to being under your supervision?
yes.
When he was transferred to your unit, so to speak, who else was under your supervision at that time?
Otis Beckford,
So was it just the three of you, so to speak?
correct.
Now, at any point were you all moved from the 8th floor to somewhere else?
Yes.
Where did you get moved to?
We were moved to the 9th floor temporarily while renovation work was going on the 8th floor.
Do you know how long that took?
It was about 5 months or so.
All right. And had you moved back down to the 8th floor prior to the defendant's termination?
Yes.
Now, when you went to the 9th floor, were you guys isolated?
More or less. We were in a group together, but in a corner of the ninth floor.
Who else was on the ninth floor?
It was just us.
No other bodies from other companies or anything?
The other half of the ninth floor was the Nature's Table restaurant.
Okay. So as far as RS&H employees, it was just the three of you on the ninth floor.
That is correct.
And you said you sat in close proximity to one another.
Yes.
Did you observe the defendant pretty much every day for 5 months?
Yes.
Now, I said observe. You were also supervising his work. Is that right?
That's correct.
Can you describe the defendant's work product when he first came under your supervision?
It was satisfactory.
Okay. And what type of work was he doing for you?
He was doing CAD.
And what is CAD?
CAD is computer-aided drafting and design, drawing technical drawings on the computer.
Is that the same work that Otis Beckford was doing?
Yes.
Would they work on the same project or different projects, or how did that work?
No, we all three worked on the same project together for that period of time.
Okay. At some point, did the defendant's work product begin to change?
Yes.
And do you recall when that was, or how long after he started working under your supervision?
I would estimate probably 3 months.
And what was the nature of the change?
It was less attention to detail. It was doing things that weren't actually asked or directed of, or incorrect.
And did you address this with the defendant?
Yes.
How many times did you address it with him when you were his supervisor?
Many times.
More than 5?
Yes.
Did you make the problems with his work product known to anyone else? And specifically your supervisors or superiors?
Yes.
And who did you make it known to?
Renato Gonzalez.
Now, what was the structure, the management structure like at that point?
Renato was the highway transportation manager, so to speak,
Okay.
and I was managing all the toll facilities projects.
So technically, was he your boss or was he just a sort of a different branch?
He was a different boss, but he was not my direct boss, no.
Okay. Who else was management within the office?
Jim Avitable,
And what was his role?
he was the office manager at the time.
And who else?
I believe they were transitioning to Jesse Forrest.
And transitioning to have him take over as office manager.
That's correct.
So you made these problems, you vocalized these issues to Renato Gonzalez.
Correct.
Now, did you attempt to address them with the defendant before doing that?
Yes.
And I think you said several times.
Yes.
What was Jason Rodriguez's response to your attempts to improve his work?
They were not well received. It was almost as if it was criticism, and it wasn't directed that way.
Did he make attempts to change things or improve them in the ways that you asked him to?
When he did, it was very brief, and then it resorted right back to the mode of, well, we needed to correct it.
Did he disagree with you about the way things that should have been done?
Sometimes.
Now, you said Otis Beckford was doing the same work at the same time, correct?
Correct.
How was Otis Beckford's work product?
It was very well. It was very good.
In comparison to Jason Rodriguez's work product, how was it?
It was much better.
Did you ever tell Jason Rodriguez that Otis Beckford's work product was better than his?
I believe I did at one time.
And did you hold Otis Beckford's work product up as an example for the way that the work should be done?
I believe I did at one time to clarify what exactly I was looking for.
Okay. Now, at some point, the decision was made that the improvement was not great enough to keep the defendant in employment. Is that right? In other words, the decision was made to terminate him.
Correct.
Were you part of the decision-making process?
Yes, I was.
Who else was part of that process?
I believe Renato Gonzalez was, and so was Jesse Forrest and Gemma Vittable.
Now, was it ultimately your decision as to whether or not he should be terminated?
No.
What was your role in the process?
My role was to produce documents substantiating the deficiencies so that it could be handled by the manager.
Now, you said produce documents. Did you generate things on your own?
No.
What are you referring to?
These were red lines or drawings that were direction that was given to Jason. And the product that was produced after that direction.
So you supplied the management with examples of his work.
Correct.
Were you aware that he was going to be terminated the day that it actually occurred? Prior to that day? Prior to the event itself, did you know it was going to happen?
No.
Did it turn out that you were present the day he was terminated?
Yes.
And were you in the meeting itself?
No.
Did you have any observations or any interaction with the defendant after that meeting?
Very brief.
Okay. What were your observations? What did you see?
I saw him tape a note to the window in front of Jesse Forrest's office.
Okay. Commissioner, approach the witness with State's Exhibit L.
You may.
Mr. Beverly, I'm showing you State's Exhibit L. If you could look at it, both sides, and tell me if you recognize it.
Yes.
And what is State's Exhibit L?
This is the letter that was taped to Jesse Forrest's office window.
And is it the exact same letter, or does it appear to be the exact same letter that was taped that day?
It does appear to be.
Okay. And it's actually in color, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, you said you saw him tape it to Jesse Forrest's window, correct?
Correct.
Did you observe the letter while it was still on the window?
I did?
And it's the same letter?
Yes.
Your Honor, this time State seeks to admit State's Exhibit L is the next numbered exhibit.
What's the answer to defense?
I would object based on prior testimony that appears not to completely authenticate the document.
Based upon that objection will be overruled, be received in evidence as states numbered.
12.
Now, permission to publish State's 12 to the jury.
You may. Members of the jury, you will have an opportunity to examine it in detail during your deliberations.
Mr. Beverly, after...
May I see it, please?
Yes, sir. I apologize. Mr. Beverly, after you saw Jason Rodriguez tape the note to the window, did you see anything else?
He did make a hand gesture.
And in which direction did he make the hand gesture?
He pointed it at Jesse in the shape of a gun.
And can you show us the hand gesture he made?
It was similar to this.
And then what did he do?
And then he went back to his office or his cubicle where he had previously sat.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Beverly, the red mark on the back of the note that you saw that day, did you have an opportunity that day to actually look at it more closely?
No, I did not.
But you say that this is the same note, the original note.
Right, because it had the red thumbprint.
And is that red thumbprint, can you tell what it's made with?
It looks like red ink.
Red ink? Okay. And the time between when Jason Rodriguez was terminated to the time of the incident on November 6th of 2009 was approximately how long?
About 2.5 years.
Okay. No further questions.
Any redirect? No, Your Honor. May the witness be excused.
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you, sir. You may be excused.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a quick 5-minute recess so the state will be able to set up some equipment for the next evidence to come in. Again, please remember all of my previous instructions. We'll be in recess.
Jury at 7.
Okay, we're in recess. Yes, ma'am.
I'm on a schedule for this here in the morning to Polk County hearings and it's going to be hearing. Is it
Now,
here?
what? No, there will.
Oh. Jason Rodriguez taped the note to the window. Did you see anything else?
Jill, there's something on my docket Tuesday for Polk County.
And
We gotta set.
in which direction did he make the hand gesture?